Meet Ben. Ben had very abusive parents who would often neglect him, and sometimes they would even beat him. So at the young age of 9, he was placed into a foster home. And the only thing that Ben truly wanted in his life was to get taken in by a real, loving family. In his mind, this was the only way for him to be happy. And if he couldn't do this, he was destined to live a life of unhappiness and depression. Ben's foster home was in pretty bad shape, and he had to fight for his most basic needs, like having enough food to eat every single day, or having a nice bed to sleep in, or even wearing nice, comfortable clothes. And this environment led Ben to become very emotional, and from a very early age, Ben would experience the full spectrum of emotions. There would be moments when he would be filled with rage when another kid was bullying him, and moments of pure joy and hope when he thought a family would adopt him, followed by moments of deep sadness when the adoption parents would choose somebody else. His life was like a roller coaster, consisting of times of great highs and very low lows, and this caused Ben to become very emotionally unstable. There were some families who were interested in adopting Ben, but the moment when he saw one thing that he liked about a family, he would envision this amazing future with them, and he would get lost in this magical fantasy of how happy he would be and how amazing his life would turn out. And the moment when he saw something that he didn't like about a family, he would get lost in a fantasy of how much he would hate them and how he would be depressed and sad for his whole life. He was not able to think logically or rationally about the actual consequences of making a choice. And of course, these extreme emotions would put a lot of families off when they met him, and they wouldn't want to bring such an emotional person into their family. So little Ben went many years with no family, and he would watch all of his friends get adopted one by one, leaving him all alone. After a few years, Ben started to act out, and he started to get into fights with the other foster kids or arguing with the foster parents. But it wasn't until one day when he got in trouble with a police officer. Ben was simply crossing the road when he shouldn't have, and the police officer came up to him and said, "Hey, you know jaywalking is illegal, right?" And instead of just apologizing to the officer, Ben started to argue with him, saying how he was being overly sensitive, saying how he wasn't even jaywalking and how stupid the cop was being. And within minutes, the situation was completely blown out of proportion, and Ben was verbally assaulting the officer. And the officer was about to arrest Ben until he found out that he lived in a foster home. Fortunately, the officer had a soft spot for foster kids, so he walked him back to his home and told the foster parents, "This young man is out of control. He broke the law, then proceeded to verbally assault me. Please deal with him." The foster parents sat Ben down and said, "Listen, Ben, you need to start acting right. No family wants to take in a child who is emotionally unstable and out of control. Do you understand?" Ben said, "Yes." And then they left. Ben's anger quickly turned into sadness. To solve this, the foster parents just gave Ben some boxing gloves, and they told him to hit the punching bag until he was tired, and that's exactly what he did. So one night, Ben was hitting the boxing bags, and an older man who was a boxing trainer noticed him. He was impressed by his passion and he saw potential. So the trainer went up to Ben and asked, "You're punching pretty hard, kid. Have you ever properly boxed before?" "Nope, I just hit the bags until I'm tired," Ben replied. "You want to try boxing someone for real?" the trainer asked. "Sure, whatever," Ben said defensively. "Put on this headgear and hop in the ring. I'll grab my friend to come and box you." And within minutes, Ben was boxing a real-life person. And when he was in the ring, he was completely consumed by his emotions. He felt anger, fear, ego, all rising up and boiling inside of him. And then all of a sudden, he found himself running towards his opponent, and he tried punching him with all of his strength. But his opponent dodged it. And then Ben was hit with a quick jab to his jaw, which knocked him clean on his feet. And the fight was over. The trainer came over and asked if he was okay. "Yeah, I'm fine," Ben said defensively. The trainer told him that it's good to have heart, but you can't just run at your opponent like that. You have to be calm and calculated in order to win a fight. With tears and anger on his face, Ben just ignored the trainer and he packed up his bags to go and leave. As Ben was leaving, the trainer said, "Few fighters have passion like yours, but that temper is going to get you into trouble. If you want to learn how to master your emotions and fight properly, let me know." Ben stormed off and went home. And when he got home, he saw a kid that had bullied him a lot in the past, named Lucas, and he was eating the dinner that was supposed to be saved for him. Ben said, "Why are you eating my dinner? You were gone." "So what? It was in the fridge. I obviously was going to eat it." "Shouldn't you be hitting some boxing bag or something, or getting arrested? It seems like that's all you're good at these days." Ben became enraged by this comment, so he hit the food off the table, pushed the kid off the chair, and before Ben could do anything else, a foster parent quickly grabbed him and took him to his room. And the foster parent said, "If you ever assault another kid like that again, I will turn you over to the police myself. Do you understand?" Ben said, "Yes." "If you can't learn how to control yourself, I'm going to kick you out of this house. Do you understand?" Ben said, "Yes." And the foster parent stormed out of the room. Ben laid in his room that night, and he wasn't sure what to do, what to feel, and he felt completely alone. Ben had no idea how to control his emotions. And then he thought of the boxing trainer, who was the only person who had actually expressed interest in helping him. "I guess I have nothing to lose to see what he has to say," Ben thought to himself. So the next day, he went back to the gym and saw him. Ben went up to the coach and said, "Hey, I'm sorry for storming off like that. Do you still want to teach me how to fight?" The coach smiled and said, "Well, that depends. Will you follow everything I say without question?" "I guess." "Great. The first and most important thing that I want you to do is to read a book called The Laws of Human Nature. And once you are done reading that, I want you to tell me if you think you are more of a rider or a horse." "Rider or a horse? What are you talking about? I thought you were going to teach me how to fight." "And that's exactly what I'm going to do. But first, you have to understand how to master your emotions. And don't bother coming back to me until you are ready to talk about what's in that book, because it'll be really hard for you." Ben rolled his eyes and said, "Okay, fine," and then he went home. And over the next few days, he started to read the book, and then he finally got to the chapter called The Rider and the Horse. As Ben was reading the chapter, he started to feel weird, and that weird feeling quickly turned into anger the more he read. Ben thought to himself, "This stupid book is trying to tell me who I am, telling me that I have all these flaws. It doesn't know what I've been through or who I am," and he threw the book away. And he went downstairs to get some food. And then he saw Lucas, the boy who had bullied him many times in the past, the boy who he had almost fought a couple of days ago. And he saw him saying goodbye to the foster parents because a family had decided to adopt him. In this moment, Ben was filled with envy, jealousy, and anger because Lucas was getting the thing that he wanted most in his life. In this moment, Ben realized that if he wanted to have a real, loving family, he would have to change something. He had to do something, but he didn't really know how to do this, and there was only one person who actually wanted to help. So he decided to trust the boxing coach, and he read the book. So the next day, he went back to the gym to see the coach. "So, did you finish the book?" the coach said. "Yes," Ben said. "Great. So are you more of a horse or a rider?" And Ben took a deep breath and said, "A horse." "Very good. Do you want me to teach you how to be more of a rider?" "Yes," Ben said. And it was in this moment when Ben started on the journey to master his emotions. He learned what his emotions meant, where they came from, and why he was feeling them. And through the boxing coach's teachings, he learned how to control his rage, his sadness, his passion through learning about the mental side of boxing. And in the next year, Ben had actually achieved what he wanted most in his life, which was to get taken in by a real family. It turned out that the boxing coach and his wife were talking about adopting a kid for the past few years. and the new and improved Ben seemed like an appropriate fit. So you were probably wondering what the book said about the horse and the rider, and I'm going to explain it to you right now. The ancient Greeks had a really profound metaphor for how emotions work within all humans, and it is known as the horse and the rider. The rider is our thinking self. It's the part of us that plans and problem solves. It will tell you, hey, I want to go that way. But it's the horse that represents our emotional self, and it provides the power for our journey. It's a wild animal that compels us to take action. Without a rider, it will move impulsively without thinking, and oftentimes it will get us into trouble. Without the rider, there is no directed movement or purpose. But without the horse, there is no energy or power. The one without the other is useless. In most people, the horse dominates and the rider is weak, and Ben was an extreme example of that. But in some people, the rider is too strong and it holds the reins too tightly and is afraid to let the animal go into a gallop. The horse and the rider must work together, and this means that we consider our actions beforehand and we bring as much thinking as possible to a situation before we make a decision. But once we decide on something, we loosen the reins and we enter action with boldness and a spirit of adventure and power. And it's often hard for us to admit that we are the horse, because in order to master our emotions, we need to understand why we feel the way we feel, which can often bring up incredibly painful things from our past that we have buried deep inside our subconscious. And most people go their whole lives without facing these demons. So my question for you is, do you think you are more of a rider or a horse? Check out my last video about the simple trick that will motivate you for life, and I'll see you there.